to my favorite day of the week, Tuesday, because I really get to spend it with you. And I'm super excited when something comes up and I get to prove a point that I'm making. I love that. Obviously, I love that. And the point that I want to talk to you about today is a confirmation of the growing trend where the physical gold and silver markets will ultimately be determining the price, and the physical markets as a supply and demand real pricing tool versus Wall Street's. So can I have the slides, please? Thank you so much. Here we go. I mean, back and forth. So one day gold hits a new week high as U.S. data boosts rate cut expectations. What does that mean? Well, when the Fed pushes the interest rates down, then that's better for gold, right? Because it makes the dollar weaker, okay? But, you know, on the flip side of that, gold falls as bet on Fed cut waiver with data gap clouding view. So the point is Wall Street actually wants you to think all of this crap matters. Well, physical markets don't move that rapidly. The paper trading markets do. And so that's why they call spot gold gold and spot silver silver. It is neither one. It is merely a contract representation. And I am, by the way, based on the question that I had last week, so I will be showing you a chart on silver and where support is. But this is the piece that confirms that shift from the paper markets controlling the price action to the physical markets controlling the price action. So I was really excited when I saw this. Gold and silver surge amidst ETF outflow. And this is a market paradox. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, let me show you. First of all, they are referring to the spot markets because they never really want you to think of anything other than the spot markets of having validity. But can you see down at the very end of that, I just drew a square around there, how the ETF, Wall Street's used the ETF to manage, it's one of the tools that they use to manage the price. And I'm going to show you something in just a second, but bear with me. You can see the major outflows in ETFs at the same time that the spot price continued to go up. That's just a teeny little trigger that most people would never, ever notice. But the reality is, it is a confirmation of this growing structural shift in the gold and silver market away from the paper markets and into the physical markets guiding the pricing. So I'm super happy to hear it. It doesn't happen like that. So as I come across it, or if you come across this, share this in this forum. It's a great place to do it since we're live. But I also wanted to point this piece out, and boy, it's really small, so forgive me on this. But this is the cross asset markets for gold. See that little teeny weeny line up on where that arrow is? Okay. Well, that's the ETF market. The over-the-counter market, the OTC, and the exchanges are far, far bigger than that itty-bitty OTC market that we can see it, or not OTC, the ETF market that we can see it. So the shift is absolutely happening. It continues to evolve. And frankly, I look forward to the day when it is the true supply and demand market that is giving us accurate pricing. Now, do I expect Wall Street to ever tell us what the true fundamental value is? Well, not for a very long time. But ultimately, yes, because when the central banks need to regain, or the governments make an attempt to regain your confidence as we are in that hyperinflationary event, then we will see gold begin to move toward its true fundamental value. You can see from this long-term graph on the central banks that they continue to buy gold at the highest levels recorded. What does that tell you? that tells you that they know that they are destroying whatever little bit of confidence yet remains in the market, because rapid inflation with all the mental manipulation that goes on, and the loss of confidence, that's the key. It's that confidence piece that will cause the hyperinflation. Now, quantitative easing is money printing for free. So dropping the interest rates all the way back down and then just spewing out money. But as we've noticed, and that started in March of 2009, and every round of quantitative easing after that has less and less and less impact. So even when they do it now, it's kind of like pushing on a string, and it is not stimulative at all. But I do think that what's going to drive that hyperinflation is a more rapid bout of inflation. I think we have that in the very, very near future. And that the complete collapse of confidence, that's what will usher in the hyperinflation. And the tool that they're going to use to create that money are your purchases. So that's the first part. I have not checked out Simon Dixon, but I will. Let me write it down. And are we a vassal state? Well, yeah, I mean, we're not a democracy. We really, even though we have the title, we haven't really been a democracy in an awfully long time. Like, they sold us. Sorry about that. We've got some storms going on, and so I guess that makes our connection a little bit challenging. But we're back on now. So the last question, part of the question was, is Trump selling us to Saudi Arabia? Quite honestly, President Trump's job is as a change agent, because we have to shift into a completely new system. Is he selling us to Saudi Arabia? I mean, I don't know, but can you see why it's so important to become your own central bank and to create that level of community around you so that you have surety in all of the mantra areas: food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter? Because whether we're being sold down the river here or we're being sold down the river there, we have to take personal responsibility for where we are in this world and what that future looks like. We can sit here and do nothing. And, quite honestly, you got to understand that is a choice. And if you make that choice, then you have to accept the consequences of that choice. Or we can come together and take our power back, which is what I think that we need to do. And that's what I'm personally fighting for. For people that don't have a voice, for people that don't understand what the real problem is. The real problem is that there's not sound money in the system anymore. The real problem is that the Constitution, where the individual was the head, that's been turned upside down. And now we're slaves to the government. We need to take our power back, and we can do that if we come together. One person can't, but 3% can. So, and Lacey Davis 4770 also asks, is the financial industrial complex taking control instead of the military industrial complex? All of those complexes, all of those private corporations, whichever area that they're in, they are the ones that are in control. And that was an agreement that started in 1914 when they converted corporate debt into Federal Reserve notes. And the Federal Reserve that issues this stuff is a corporation. Why is it okay with you to work for corporate debt? I'd rather work for sound money that can't be inflated away. So I understand how important trading dollars for gold is. If we do not do this, we are in big, big trouble. 100%. 100%. And it's not necessarily us. Like, I'm 71. I figure I'm going to be around another 29 years, and I will continue to do this as long as I can. You know, I mean, there's really no reason why I can't continue to do this, because I've got to fight for you. I'm okay. No matter what happens, I feel like I would be fine. My family would be fine because of the choices that I've made. But it's not enough. We've been really separated so much and made to think that it's just all about you, and you're not having these conversations with your neighbor. And I'm telling you, that's all part of the plan to divide and conquer. And that's why we have to do just the opposite. That's come together and help each other. Even those that, and especially, frankly, those that don't understand what's actually happening. Because we're asking them to make a paradigm shift, and that's really a hard thing to do. And that just reminded me of something that I needed to talk about today at C-Suite. Sorry. I just want to write it down because I don't want to forget. Okay. And wow, Lacey, you are really on a roll here. She asks again, are we Weimar Republic all over again? Yeah, we are. Yes. I'm so disgusted with all of these governments and politicians. Me too. You are absolutely right. We need gold back in the system. There is no other way. You know, it's time for us to take responsibility for ourselves, because clearly those that are in power are not doing what's in our best interest. They're doing what is in their best interest. So I agree with you 100%. It is time. And do you think they will allow Nvidia to crash? Yeah, I do think that they could very well allow Nvidia to crash. I mean, it's severely overvalued, the AI hype, and now it's all the talk about overvaluation. And, Warren Buffett and some big investors have pulled out of Nvidia, and that kind of rings some bells. But remember, the public has also now been trained to buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. This is a wealth transfer mechanism. The insiders are getting out at these very lofty valuations, and the public will be left holding the bag. Because even if you aren't going in and buying an individual stock, if you're putting your wealth in a mutual fund or an ETF or a 401k or an IRA or an annuity or any of that stuff, that's what you're putting your money in. And, frankly, if we don't come together, you are just the right size to fail. If, however, we come together in community, we're too big to fail, and we can take our power back. So, yep. Yeah, I do think Nvidia will be allowed to crash. But we'll see. We'll see where we're at, because I still think we're in the melt-up phase. And understand, too, that Nvidia crashing, Bitcoin going below $90,000, which it did today. I mean, I can't tell you what it's worth, other than being able to move a lot of digits around. I struggle. I really struggle with the functionality of this stuff. And, this is just the physical representation of it. And it's supposed to make you think that they're good as gold. It ain't as good as gold. Never will be as good as gold, because it has limited functionality and it's used in one place. This has unlimited functionality and it's used in every place. I mean, you can decide for yourself but my opinion and the reality is I'd rather go into this knife fight with a bazooka that has full functionality than something that's used in one place. something that's used in one place. And this is Ethereum, a representation of Ethereum. It's not a gold coin. This is used every place. And Wolf 728 asks, why are we using fiat currency if our Constitution says gold is our legal tender? Isn't that a great idea? You know, I mean, that happened back in 1913 when they legalized the Federal Reserve. That's when they started the shift away from the Constitution and away from the individual as the head of the state. And then the state's supposed to support the individual, and the federal government's supposed to support the state that's supposed to support the individual. How about we go back to that? How about that? We can do that. And that would be fine with me. That levels the playing field. And it means that all the effort that you put forth can be reasonably rewarded. Not top-sided, like it all going to the corporations and the 1%. Because isn't it interesting? Don't you remember during the COVID crisis where they talked about that K-shaped recovery, where the people at the top just kept doing really well, but the people at the bottom kept doing more poorly? And now I'm hearing that. You didn't hear K-shaped recovery for a while. I'm hearing it all over the place again. Is that okay with you? I mean, really. And if it's not okay with you, then do something about it while we can, while we still have those choices. And Golden Coons asks, is Bitcoin going to hedge inflation? Or is it a Trojan horse to get you into a fully digital surveillance economy? Because that's my opinion of it. That's been my opinion of it since I started watching it back in 2009, 2010. Something like that. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not a hedge against inflation, because where's the demand? And you see what's happening with it right now. Is this another crypto winter? I mean, I was listening to Bloomberg and the talking heads on Bloomberg this morning talking about, well, but Bitcoin has always recovered every single time it's gone into a dip. And maybe that'll happen again too. I mean, don't you kind of find it odd that it's having such a big correction when we've got the White House and all of the banking sector and fintech and all of these arenas that are supporting this transition? I mean, we shall see, but why not see when we're in safety with sound money? I mean, that's all. Then it doesn't matter what happens, because you're okay and you're able to help others. And we have to. We have to. A long time ago, when I was wondering why I was on this planet, and there were many people that helped me understand, but that woman looked into my eyes and she said, you wanted to share what we have with you. No, you wanted to share what you have with us. We want to share what we have with you. And I realized in that moment of clarity that that's why we're all here. We're here to share the gifts that we have been given. That's what my work is all about, quite honestly. That's what it's always been all about. Because for whatever reason, I've been chosen to understand this stuff, and I share it with you freely. And Deredel, if I butcher your call, please forgive me. 4174. It was so great to speak to Sarah yesterday. Oh, yay! I can't wait to hear back from her on the plan. Thank you all so much. Much respect from Germany. I very well may be in Germany around this time next year. So stay tuned. We're kind of working on it, and it would be great to meet in person. And I'm very glad that, and I hope your experience with us is always wonderful. We certainly will try. We certainly will. And Wolf728 asks, Lynette, I was shocked to hear yesterday that Martin Armstrong is in interview say that he doesn't think there'll be an economic collapse. Opinion about that? His Socrates program says World War III will occur. I did not hear that interview, but maybe, Jessica, you can pull it up and I'll listen to it. So before I give you an opinion, let me listen to it and then we'll revisit this next week. But thank you for pointing that out, because that doesn't actually sound like something that he would say. But let me listen and I'll get back to you on that. And Michaela asks, how do I educate myself on pre-33 gold? Well, a good place to start is calling us. There's something called the Red Book that kind of gives you an idea of the coins and how many were originally minted, etc. But the pre-33, I mean, you look behind me, right? And you see a lot of, and there are people that are out there that are watching me know, tangible assets, dynastic wealth. This is wealth that has lasted in families for at least 300 years. And it has three legs. It has real estate, truly rare collectibles, and gold. You can do all three with gold. The pre-33s are more rare. And because I was born in 1954, and in 1964, I saw how my Uncle Al had the ability to hold, I don't know how many ounces, but at least 3,000 ounces of gold when it was illegal to hold 5. So there are two things working for the pre-33s. One is the history of it. I mean, this particular coin is a 1910. It was minted in Philadelphia. Hence, it has no letter afterwards, just 1910. And it is a mint state 63, which means that it has, mint state means never been in circulation. When the coins that were minted back in 1910 were minted to be used in circulation. I don't know what the original mintage was off the top of my head, and I can't actually tell you how many are known to exist off the top of my head in this category. But the pre-33 coins were exempt from confiscation. And the public back in 1933, if they had understood the law, it said that any coin minted prior to 1933 is classified as rare and collectible. So that means even this raw coin that was minted in 1889, and you see I hold it in my hand all the time, I can throw it up, whatever. This is not a mint state coin, but it still falls into that classification. So what moves the rare collectibles, whether they're gold or whether they're, anything, any other hard asset, tangible asset, is quality and rarity. And where I prefer the pre-33s is because and I don't even have any here, and I'm not wearing my travel bracelet today, or at this moment anyway. But the new stuff is classified as monetary gold. In this country, gold has been confiscated 3 times historically. So much as people want to say, well, that can't happen again because gold is not part of the monetary system. Did you recall the chart of all the global central banks buying more gold than they ever have in history? Gold is actually very, very much part of the monetary system again. And what I know for sure is desperate governments do desperate things. And since in this country we've had gold confiscated 3 times, and even today we see forms of gold confiscation happening all over the place, like royalties are a form of confiscation, taxation is a form of confiscation, inflation is a form of confiscation, and all sorts of other names that they're going to use as forms of confiscation, but without saying, oh, we're confiscating it, guess what? It's hard for me to imagine that at the very end of this confiscation that they've done to you your whole life, that they're suddenly going to go, we got enough. Excuse me. You can hold the rest of your wealth. It's okay. We're not going to confiscate. I can't tell you that there will 100% be an overt confiscation because I don't know that for sure. But what I do know is that even if history doesn't exactly repeat, it absolutely rhymes. And every single country has a gold revaluation account. And every single country, 48 of them, that has gone through what we are going through right now has reset the price of gold. That is all intrinsic value since it's used in every single sector of the global economy against this garbage that has absolutely zero value, only has any value at all because you agree to work for it. Where do I have this? Wait. What makes this any different? How come every time I go to look for something, I have a hard time finding it? I am looking for my Monopoly money, which I have in here somewhere. All right. What's the difference? What? Did you take it out of there or put it in the drawer?
It's in the drawer.
Oh, it's in the drawer?
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Everybody knows what Monopoly money looks like. What's the difference between this and a bill that you would get out of a Monopoly game? You agree to work for this. That's the only difference, right? This isn't real. It was funny, and we were kind of talking about that a little bit this morning, how when we were in Cambodia, we went to the Museum of Money, and we did this tour. And of course, in Cambodia, like every other country in the world, they had at one point gold and silver as money because it's sound money. But they've removed it, and all they have is paper money now. And so we're at the end of the tour, and this very sweet young guide says to me, well, they had a blacklight machine. And she's like, well, would you like to see how to tell if it's counterfeit? I said, well, all of that's counterfeit. And she, oh, no, some of it's real. I said, and I pulled out actually silver I happen to have on me. I said, no, that's real money. Anything that looks anything like this paper or digits, that's fiat money. It's counterfeit to this. But we've been taught away from it. We need to teach back to that. The politicians don't understand it. The children don't understand it. We are working on a lot of educational pieces. But, how do you educate yourself in pre-33? It's a broader education than that, but this is a great place to start, and you're asking the right questions. Plus, with the new stuff that they create, the eagles, they're all the same, but they're never intended to be in circulation, ever, where the pre-33s really were. So to get a coin that's mint state, it's more rare. So you have two trends that you're working on here. Number one is the trend in sound money in even in the spot markets in gold and silver. But the other is also in the collectible area because there's a finite amount of them. So this is how they work. You go into an auction, and there are 10 people, and there are 10 pieces of bullion on the table. Everybody wants an ounce. Wherever the bidding opens up, that's what they're going to pay. And everybody walks away happy. But at that same auction, you have one of these, and you have 10 people, and they all want it, but whoever's willing to pay the most gets it. But then you still had 9 people that wanted it, so you have pent-up demand, right? There is no fever like gold fever, and when this fever kicks in, especially if they do an overt confiscation, and now this is the only way, like with my Uncle Al, the only way that he could legally hold and use in the normal marketplace the gold. So even more important is understanding the true value of any instrument any asset, because if you don't know that, then you have no idea if it's undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued. Therefore, do you want to buy it? Do you want to hold it? Do you want to liquidate it? Just like Nvidia or Bitcoin or anything else. What is its fundamental value? Okay, that's a little nuanced. I've done some videos on that, so you can go in and look, and maybe we can pull the link. Didn't I do one on fundamental value, how you get the fundamental value? I'm pretty sure that I did. If I didn't, I will. I'll do that, because you can do that for, and need to do it, frankly, for every single asset and every single instrument. So let me look at that, and I will do a video on that, because that'll help answer not just that question, but also the question is how we're moving through this whole strategy. Because really, the difference between Zang Enterprises and anybody else is that, frankly, they have me. And I've studied currency life cycles since 1987. And the strategy that we actually execute, it's not just to throw you in gold and silver. If you just buy gold and silver, you better know how everything works so you can go through it. But if you're working with us, then we're actually executing a strategy. And it's important when you buy, and what you buy, that's got to be based on what you're trying to accomplish, whether that is to protect your current standard of living, protect your fiat money wealth that you've managed to accumulate, be in a position to take advantage of those opportunities, or leaving a legacy for your family. Whatever your goals are in there, that's what should drive what you do, period. That's the first part of it. But it's not just you're buying gold and silver and you're sitting in it forever. Yes, every single foundation or every single portfolio should always have a foundation of sound money. But depending upon where we are in the trend cycle and what's happening would determine how much of your portfolio needs to be there and in what kind. Because there is no doubt in my mind, having studied it since 1987, that we are at the end of this current experiment's life cycle, and transitioning into the next iteration, which we better have some say in that next iteration. But because that's where we are, I am concerned about confiscation. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. How about doing something where it doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong? So if you're positioning into the collectible gold below fundamental value, even if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. And the difference in the price, that premium, is your wealth insurance. But if I'm right, then that multiplies your opportunity. I don't even know how big that could be. But there will come a point, you'll watch us, and I'll do one. I'll do a fundamental value on a whole bunch of different asset classes, because it's that and the pattern of the accumulation that will be dictating when we start to liquidate our positions. That's the exit strategy. We actually have one, and there are triggers and timing and all sorts of different things that we have set up in place when it is time to execute or exit part of the strategy. So yeah, educating about the pre-33s, you can look at them as any really fine, good collectible. So it's rarity and quality, but it's broader than that because it's one collectible, unlike this piece of acid cutback glass that I love. I love that piece, but it's not universal, right? This is universal because it's gold, it's sound money. For that, I need a specific person. For this, especially with being the end of the currency's life cycle, it's got a double, triple whammy. That's a benefit to us. And it doesn't matter whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. And that's the way I like to play things. If I can do that, 100% of the time. And Diogenes Aftaraxia. I'm so bad at this. Water independence, yes, is the place to start, especially in Arizona, 100%. So as I was evolving my urban farm here, I put in a bunch of different ponds. I've converted my 75,000-gallon swimming pool into, and I think I've shown you videos of that, into a pond. You're absolutely right. And there's all different ways to create that water security. It is critically important. And yes, while we're in a desert and we've been in a drought for a long time, I'm going to say wherever you are in the world, it's going to be critically important that you pay attention and you have that backup water. And there's all different ways to do it, because I'm thinking of all the water use from the data centers that are being built all over the world. And with these corporations having more money than governments, I'm thinking that when push comes to shove and that whole infrastructure is in place, if it's a choice between corporations getting the water and individuals getting the water, if we don't take our power back, guess who's in control? Not you. So I agree with that. You can't live without food. You can't live without water. Get that done. In my bug out location, I own the water rights and I sit on top of a huge aquifer, which right now I know it's raining there. So that aquifer is just filling up, and that's a very good thing. So yes, I agree with that 100%. And the official Antares, Lynette, if physical silver supply is depleting faster than gold, why isn't silver considered a tier 1 asset like gold? It's because it does actually get used up, and it's a lot more volatile, because even though both gold and silver are used in manufacturing, silver is used more. And so when you're looking at what defines money, it's a tool of measure. So we need to have all of the gold accounted for in any form so that we can actually use that as a true tool of measure. Silver's harder to use as a tool of measure because it gets used up. So only gold, and they've tried so many things over thousands of years to what could be money, but frankly, only gold meets every bit of the criteria. That's why it's a tier 1 asset. And that's why, and the primary currency metal, silver is not, but it is the secondary currency metal. So that's why. And the official Antares, what is the real risk of depending on U.S.-based custodians for gold storage if the dollar loses global reserve dominance? Confiscation, my friend, confiscation. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. Now, there are some caveats to that, because you can be in a private vault and have a private box so that whatever you're holding in that box is invisible and nobody else has access to it. But that is also considered your holding because you're the only one that can access it. So there are, and you should be diversified in many ways, so that gets into more nuances. But yeah, to your point, that's the real risk, is that confiscation. Desperate governments do desperate things. And are you seeing anything that's being done that puts your best interest first? Because I'm not. And Pat Karen asks, you have been at this a lot longer than most people. Yep. Stop scaring the people into the collectibles, bless you, just because you have it. Most are broke now. And I don't want anybody to be broke. And I'm not scaring people into anything. I'm giving you the facts. And look, in all of my work, I give you the links. So follow those links, do your own due diligence. And if you end up drawing a different conclusion than I, rock and roll hoochie coo, I will support your right to do that. You can buy bullion at Zang Enterprises. That's not a problem if that's what you want. Though a properly diversified portfolio, if you're going to have bullion, fine. Just diversify it with this. What if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? Does that scare you? Because I would think that that puts you in a position to be quite calm because you don't have to worry about anything. And if you've taken the time to create surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter, then you shouldn't be scared about anything. One of the comments that I get quite a bit is, how is it that you always seem so upbeat when everything you look at is really ugly and nasty? Yep. I surround myself by pretty, but I have security in all of those areas. So I can sleep at night because I'm more ready. I actually did meet somebody in Panama that's actually even more prepared than I am. I love that. But, I've been preparing for a very long time, so I don't have to be scared or worried. And I want everybody to have the ability to make educated choices that puts their best interest first. But quite honestly, if you aren't going to do your due diligence, I'm doing it for you. And I'm giving you the tools to hold my toes to the fire. Rock and roll hoochie coo. You should be able to do that. You should be able to have those questions, but don't just believe something because you have a random opinion. If you have a random opinion, it is not as valid as mine. I'm sorry. It's just a fact. I have a very well-educated opinion. Yep, I've been groomed for this moment in time. Yep, I've been doing this on some level my entire life. So what do I know? I'm just trying to scare you. No, what I'm trying to do is pull a community together and get sound money back in the system. I don't have to worry about me, but I am worried about you. Whether you like it or not, I actually care that we have a level playing field and they can't continue to abuse and rob you. And Lacey Davis, 4770, says, I am dirty poor, making $42,000 a year. I am a single mom. I was a single mom too. I still am, actually, and still afford 0.5 grams of gold, ounces of silver. I make it work because I know it's the only way. Thank you, Lacey. And, I was a single mom raising my daughters by myself, and I was by myself even before the divorce, frankly. But the girls were 3, and I had to figure this out. And it was challenging. So I appreciate that. And I think you can see the importance of community because everybody brings the talents and the gifts that they have, and you work together to get through this. There's power in numbers. So thank you very much for that. I agree. There's always a way. Because gold and silver in any form are monetary at its base. I mean, gosh, I picked this stuff up at yard sales. I'd go into like secondhand shops and whatever. If it's marked sterling, it's 92.5% pure. And it doesn't matter if it's bent or it's broke or it's tarnished or any of that. It doesn't matter. It's monetary at its base. And there's another way that you can accumulate even these smaller pieces. In fact, I just did it myself a couple weeks ago. Obviously I know a lot of antiquer friends. And, one of my friends called me and he says, I have a piece that I want to liquidate, and I don't have it in here. I'm going to put it in my office, but it's a big silver. If you want to see it, I'll bring it in the office next week and I'll show you, plaque that I was able to buy below spot. So, that's another way to accumulate is go into an antique mall, find out the dealer that deals in a lot of silver, and if they have scrap silver that they'll sell you. Because typically they're going to take it to a smelter, and smelter's going to pay below spot for it. So you can too. Just remember, if an ounce is 10, and it's marked sterling or 925, it's 92.5% pure. So you take whatever the spot is and you multiply it by that percentage, and then that's the fair price, and go below that. So there are ways, no matter what your circumstances are, there are ways to accumulate. And you may even have some in your jewelry box without realizing it, or Aunt Bessie's sterling silver or whatever. I mean, I have frames, I have chopsticks, I have flatware, I have salt and pepper shakers. I mean, it doesn't matter what the form is or the condition. Liza Jane 84 says, is there a good movie or documentary we could watch with a spouse to help explain what's going on today that's repeating the past? Well, actually, there are a couple of documentaries that are coming out. Josh, do you remember the name of the documentaries, and have we gotten when they're going to be released?
I don't recall the names, but there are two, and they don't have a release date yet, I don't think.
We don't have it.
They were gonna let us know.
Okay, so stay tuned. And I've done two. Actually, the series that I just did on Barr, a member of the FOMC, where I broke it down based on what he was talking about, I would definitely see if you could watch part of it. But we're also going to be coming out with, that's why I wrote this down for C-Suite a little bit later. We're going to be offering something that maybe you can get them to watch for about 2 minutes. Okay, so stay tuned, because we're very close with that. We're this close with that. Hopefully, maybe I'll even be able to say something next week about it. That's the goal anyway. And Stroke Guy Overland 5060 asks, do you ever see a gold confiscation happening again? Well, I see it happening right now, particularly in Africa, where miners are forced to sell 20% of what they pull out of the ground in the local currency that is hyperinflating. That is a form of confiscation. So yes, I absolutely do see a gold confiscation in our future. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, I can buy this way below fundamental value. I don't care. It doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. So, yeah, I do, because they're still doing it. What do you think inflation is? Inflation is a form of confiscation. They just don't call it confiscation. But, think about it. You're working for, well, it looks like you're getting more of these, but they don't spend like they used to when we were gold backed, right? That is a form of confiscation. And the level of taxation to keep people away from this is also a form of confiscation. So the question more is, do I see an overt confiscation in our future? And the answer would be yes, because there is historic precedence. If there wasn't historic precedence, then I wouldn't be able to say that. But that would be if somebody is wondering, well, when was that? The War of 1812, the Revolutionary War, no, not the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, Civil War, thank you, and 1933. When they kicked off, that was the end of the kickoff to this lie that took us away from the Constitution.
Going back to the documentary, our beloved PR lady, Natalie.
Yay, thank you, Natalie.
She chimed in and she said one documentary is called Money Disrupted and will hopefully come out in December or January. So,
awesome.
Natalie for the win.
Natalie for the win. She's doing such a great job. Very happy with her. Yeah, she keeps me very busy. Oh my God. Between Jacqueline, Jessica, and Natalie, I don't know if I could survive these three women. Chop, chop. Oh, wait, you've got 1 second. Can't you do this? Yes, okay. But yeah, no, great job. Thank you very much. And Cryptonomics asks, government is not supporting crypto. They're supporting stable coins, which many think is crypto, but it ain't. Okay, well, look, you're into this. Can you go into more detail about that? Because stable coins that are backed by one-to-one to any fiat money currency, yeah, I do think they are backing that, but no, There are things that I just avoid because I need to stay on air. You need me to stay on air. But I would not mind having a conversation about this or anything else, because I feel like this is a community. The community doesn't always have to agree. A cult, everybody must only think one way. And that's not what we are. We're a community. And so the more good information that we have coming in, the better everybody that's watching, the better opportunity they will have to make educated choices that puts their best interest first. So I would appreciate it if you maybe at some point, and you can email this, if you could break that down a little bit more and share more about that. And Gaslin Enterprise says, it's a reset for crypto. It's actually a good time to get in because it will go up and then come right back down. You just need to take profit before it crashes again. And that profit is in this. And so I go back to my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. I can't buy anything with it. Don't be blinded by numbers. This is not the time to be taking risks. Yep, they have absolutely trained us to buy the dips. So, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, because frankly, you need to do whatever it is that you are comfortable doing, regardless of what anybody, including me, says. You're the ones that will reap the reward or suffer the consequences. So it's critically important that you make those educated choices that puts your best interest first. I am not a short-term trader. That is not how I operate. But I definitely am familiar with perception management. In fact, Josh and I were just looking at some things this morning, and I probably will be doing a video on perception management. The problem is it's a game of hot potato. And you don't know when that music is going to stop playing and you're going to be left with a hot potato and no place to throw it. But if you choose to do that, just make sure you're properly diversified. Then what are you in? You're in a circumstance. What if I'm right? What if I'm wrong? It doesn't matter. That's the best place to be. So you have to buy gold with paper, though, or digits at this point. Or you can work for it. I mean, there are some people that I do pay with gold or with silver, depending upon what they want. So yeah, that's the way the system is set up, and we have to comply with it. Just like when it's time to convert, this is part of the strategy, when it's time to convert into income-producing assets, we're going to be converting this into whatever the local currency happens to be. Just for a minute, so that you're then converting it into that asset. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We have to basically work within the system, but we don't have to stay completely in the system. And we can be properly diversified so that it doesn't matter. But good point. Yep. Jambobsky says, hi, Lynette, why do politicians want a fiat money system when their own governments have huge deficits and counting? It seems to hurt them, not help them. Well, I do think that there are probably politicians that get into it for the right reasons. But I also think that the political system is so corrupt that even those that go into it with every good intention in mind would ultimately, end up either leaving the system or being corrupted by it. But in a fiat and a gold standard, what do politicians want to do? They want to buy your votes by spending money, right? On a gold standard, if they raised your taxes, you would know about it, and you might not like it, and you might not agree to it. In a fiat money standard, that eliminates that obstacle, because they can create the inflation, and that is an almost invisible tax on you. And look they've already gotten 98%, pretty close to 98% of all the purchasing power wealth that you had in this dollar. And you don't complain about it and they can spend money that they don't have, because deficit spending, that's spending money you don't have, and get reelected. But does it hurt? Yeah, it hurts everybody in the long term. But that's why they like the fiat money system, because it enables them to generate taxation without having to go through legislation. And therefore, I mean, I do remember in the 70s, inflation was a very bad word. Well, it's used now as a good thing. The devaluation trade, that's inflation. Why is that a good thing? But the fact that they're bold enough to say it over and over again is a big indication that we are at the end of this. All of the garbage that's in the system is a big indication that we're at the end of this. And John Bethia 4505, I just saw a site that showed the Perth Mint refining gold and silver. We need to buy at least 10,000 ounces of silver and 100 pounds of gold to make a dent in metals. Well, I never really give a blanket number. And with the sound money strategy, the first thing we discuss are your goals. And then what do you need to do to make sure that you can sustain a reasonable standard of living? And the strategy is built in layers. And so, yeah, I mean, even a little bit of gold. I mean, during the Weimar Republic, 25 ounces of gold could buy an entire city block. Gosh, I'm sorry, guys. We seem to be having a lot of problems with the internet today, so I guess we'll do a short session. But Ma Cop asks, Lynette, why the Z in the background? So I think you're referring to this, and this is the box that we have for clients for them to put their gold coins in and hold them marked. We've got stickers too, but I don't have that here. So it's a beautiful box to hold your gold. And that is what that Z is about in the background. There we go.
So someone was asking about the 25 ounces in the Weimar. I guess we cut out right before we finished that story.
Okay, and I have done a video not just on the Weimar Republic, but during the Weimar Republic, 25 ounces of gold would buy an entire city block, buildings and all. So to the point that we need 100 pounds of gold to make a dent in the. Are you trying to corner the metals market? Is that what you're trying to do? Because, maybe. But I think you can do quite well with a whole lot less than that because it's severely undervalued. And I don't know about you, but quite honestly, I would always rather have the lion's share of my wealth in an undervalued asset that's in a long-term positive trend than in an overvalued instrument that is in a long-term negative trend. You may see cryptocurrencies going up or stock markets going up, but the real trend isn't that. The real trend is in the purchasing power, because I go back to my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note that buys me nothing. Don't be fooled by numbers. And no, I don't think you need to have 100 pounds of gold to make a dent. I think that you should call us and we can calculate out how much gold you need and how much silver you need based upon what you're trying to accomplish. And Gaz Enterprise says, thanks, Lynette, because truthfully, the problem is there's not enough people your age preaching and teaching us about this type of stuff. It is my pleasure. It is why I was born. And I didn't know exactly what it was, but I've known that I'm here. I feel like a warrior, right? I mean, I am. This is what I was put on this planet to do. So thank you for recognizing it. And it is really why I work so hard for you guys, because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to share. I've been given the site and been put in the circumstances to understand this stuff so that I could help you guys through it. And Jambobsky says, hi, Lynette, could you explain the money printing process? Where does the money go and how is it used? Well, the money printing process is really, I don't know if you're talking about actual bills, which is on a printing press. And where does it go? Okay. If you think of the central banks as the center of a wheel, and then there's spokes outside of that wheel, and then there's a big wheel outside of that, right? Whoever sits closest to that center, so all those corporations, actually gets the new money first in digital form, right? It doesn't have to be printed. Most money is not printed. And then the difference between the cost to create that money and the face value of that money, actually, that's the profit of the central bank, which is why I'm a little concerned that the Federal Reserve has not made a profit in 4 years, because they've created an awful lot of money. So I'm not really sure why, but that has me a bit concerned. Now, as you go further out, and it's corporations, it's bank, those are private corporations. The Federal Reserve, that's a private corporation. Those are who gets the money first. Then some of it goes to the government, right? The banks and the corporations around the central bank pays less in interest for those funds than our government does. Seems a little odd, doesn't it, to you? But that's because we are actually working for corporate debt. I don't want to work for corporate debt. I'm forced to, right? Because I got to be in the system. And to an earlier point, this is what I need in order to make purchases. Or if I'm traveling, I've got to convert it into whatever their garbage fiat money is. There's no choice about that at this moment. But I have to say that in my entire life and in my entire career, this is the absolute best opportunity that I have ever seen to get sound money back in the system again. But I keep harping on this. It has to be redeemable, because if it isn't, it's not real. It's not real. They can do anything they want if they are not held accountable. Redeemable gold in the monetary system holds government and politicians accountable. We have to take our power back. So Lacey Davis, 4770. So I don't know that was a great answer for the money printing process, but debt is issued and then money is created from that. And then the money goes to corporations first, then the government, and then ultimately it trickles all the way down to the individuals when it has a lot less purchasing power. But it's those corporations that get it first when it has the most purchasing power. Okay, Lacey Davis, 4770. I started buying gold 3 years ago. I owe a huge thanks to you. Oh, you are very welcome. You're the one who really got me thinking, so thank you. Well, I'm honored that you feel that way. Personally, I've always found that if I look at things just a teeny weeny bit different, it's amazing what you see. And so that's really what I try and do, is just get you to see things a teeny bit different and a teeny bit different. So I'm honored. I'm truly honored. Thank you so much. And JMDJ7SJ says, hello, how is Panama? fabulous. I loved Panama. Is it easy to bring a few ounces of gold into Panama from the U.S.? Easy peasy. It was easy to do it in Malaysia. It was easy to do it in Cambodia. It's been easy to do it in Australia and New Zealand and every place that I've traveled. Nobody's looking for gold or silver. Yes, it's very, very easy. And it was a phenomenal trip. And I think on so many levels, but I think one of the things that I loved so much about it was I didn't realize how much community, like-minded community, was there already. So that was quite amazing to me. I mean, we have an interview coming out, I'm not sure exactly when, with Francis Hunt. So, and also with Alex at one of the vaults. I know you saw the live from there, but we also have an interview. And also doing some research because, you know, I'm considering, especially the nomad capitalist, to really kind of open my eyes to the need for an additional passport and potentially an additional bug out location. Right now I have it, 2 hours from here, so that's easy for me to get to. And I'd like to think that's enough, but I'm not really sure that is. So yeah, Panama, the people, the food, it was very Americanized. So it was really kind of comfortable and easy to be there. So yeah, it was great. And yes, it was easy to bring gold, silver through there, no problem. And Expat Stacker 777 says, Francis Hunt thinks anywhere in the G7 is not good. He recommends having alternative residences. So, yeah. So I'm exploring. We're going to be sharing that with you as we travel and do this exploration more and more. But I am definitely in agreement with Francis. And the Nomad Capitalist, Andrew, they've got a motto, go where you're wanted. And really the advanced economies, so the G7, they don't really want you, right? They make it very hard for you and all of the restrictions, etc. Yep, he's got a very good point. And low blood pressure says, why doesn't Venezuela, Argentina, Turkey, Zimbabwe, Lebanon go to gold and silver now? This is why nobody can go to gold and silver now. It's because, well, first of all, those are smaller countries and they're working inside of the larger country or global economy. And so I believe, and I could be wrong, this is my opinion, but I believe that when this reset and the going on to this global system occurs, it will be one swift global move. Because what they've set up is at the IMF is the SDR as an umbrella currency, because it can have every single currency in that umbrella and then a local currency, right? But we have to get redeemable gold in there. The reason why they cannot, and nobody can, not even the BRICS, I mean, this comes up pretty regularly. The reason why they can't do it is because as soon as gold is inside of the system, it fixes the debt where it is. And they have to get rid of that debt, meaning repay that debt with currencies that have zero value, which is part of the strategy that we utilize in our sound money strategy too, repaying that fixed rate debt with, in this country, dollars that have zero value. But they can't do it until they have finished burning off the debt. Nobody can do it until then. So that's why. And I'm not really sure how to pronounce this, but RJGESQ 8967 says, do all of my pre-33 gold need to be graded, or will having a certain portion of my gold graded count towards the tax loophole? Well, I'm not sure about which tax loophole you're referring to, but the answer is no. You don't need all of your gold to be graded. I mean, you can see I have gold that is just raw. It is not graded, though it is prior to 1933. And this actually, the 1 ounce coins, and the different ounces, but this would be my barterable gold, and this would be my emergency gold. So I go back to what is it that you're trying to accomplish, and then that's what determines what kind of gold you need and how much of that gold that you need. Your goals always have to come first. Your goals, your circumstances, and then what you have to work with. And you build from there. But you build the strategy first based upon your goals. And Walter Thibodeau, 4516, says, Lynette, how do I transfer money from a 401k without taxation? I don't know. I mean, they set these things up. 401ks were created in the 80s. IRAs were created in the 70s. It was to transition away from corporations running the risk, which they did prior to that because they had defined benefit pension plans. So that means that the corporation took on market risk because they agreed to pay out a certain amount to their employees over the employee's lifetime. Well, they didn't really like that. And as we were transitioning into this debt-based system, they came up with the IRAs and then the 401ks, which transfers the risk from the corporations and the defined benefits. You see, and they do it so closely so you think nothing's changing when everything is changing, into defined contributions and pre-tax dollars. Because people look at that, they don't see, you have 100,000 in there, right? You don't see, well, actually, 40% of that is going to taxes until it's time to take it out. So you just see, well, I got 100,000 there. I don't want to take that out because I don't want to pay the taxes. If you're currently contributing, you might not even have a choice. But whenever you take that distribution, and however you take that distribution, because there are different ways to do it, you can borrow from your 401k. You have to check with the administrator and see what those terms are. That would be a way to get it out without making it a taxable event because you're going to pay yourself back. That's the only way that I can really think of to take it out without a taxable event. I might suggest that you think a little bit more deeply so that you control how you pay those taxes, because if you don't, well, they're going to decide. In other words, the government is going to decide how much those taxes are going to be and how you're going to pay them. And you should understand, God bless you, you should understand that there have been a lot of discussions in Congress of a one-off tax. In other words, what a one-off tax is, like they did this in Poland, where they charge the retirement plans, whatever percentage they're going to charge. The discussions that I've heard here were like 11% or something like that. But if they can convince you they're only going to do it one time, because it's going to shock you, right? But if they can convince you they're only going to do it one time, then you don't change how you make those contributions. So that's why it's called a one-off tax. It's not really true. It'll be true until they do it another time. But I would say be more proactive in your planning on how you want to do that. Because part of the strategy is any costs, any taxes, any losses, any fees, anything that you use up. Keep in mind that first part of the strategy, the barterable part, is designed to be used up. Well, the strategy is set up to recoup all of that so that by the time we come to the conclusion, you are much better off than when you entered it. But you can call us, talk to our strategy specialists, and get into that more deeply. And Jeremy Hackler asks, if the government gets desperate, do you think they could pull another Executive Order 6102 and confiscate our gold again? Yeah, I do. What's to stop them? maybe even for us to roll the amount into crypto before they reevaluate it. I'm not really sure what you mean by that second part, but the answer is yes, desperate governments do desperate things. And think about for yourself. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day, and I'm using the example of shoes, right? But, as you're going up and buying more expensive shoes, there'll be a price point where you don't go beyond. But once you do, you pull that trigger and you go beyond that price point, makes it easier to do it the next time, doesn't it? Think about it for yourself and you're going to know that what I just said is true. So in this country, 3 times, I do think that they could do an overt confiscation. That's why I just like the pre-33s. It's not about scaring you. This is a fact. This isn't my opinion. This has actually happened. So to think that it won't happen again, that's hopium. Hopium is not a good plan. And Ernest DeBella asks, been buying silver-plated items from thrift shops and deplating the items. Plan to make bars and rounds with my electronic furnace. Is it better to not melt down the sterling items or just hold them? I don't think it really matters, honestly. If I needed a piece of this to clip this iced tea spoon, would not be a big deal, but none of this is plated. I do have plated trays, but I don't count that in my silver holdings. This is a sterling silver iced tea spoon. That means it's 92.5% pure. I don't know enough about how you would deplate those plated silver items, but that's a different beast. I don't personally buy that. Oh, there you go. You want to put that up there? How to deplate silver recovery. So what does that say? Reverse electroplating method. So there you go. That seems like a bit of work, but I'm not going to tell you shouldn't do it. I think if you're doing it, that's awesome. That's awesome. I keep the plating on my silver trays because I like to use them for parties and things. Did you want to say something about that?
I was just going to say that seems like more work than it's worth. I mean, if you think the juice is worth the squeeze, go for it.
Right. And I'd support your right to do it. I didn't even really ever think about deplating anything because it's such a thin layer. But why not? Why not? And GSD Puppies 3230 says, I like to buy junk silver coins because while higher than face value, it's already both silver as well as legal tender money as just part of my silver strategy. Totally. I have them myself. I love them. Constitutional silver. And people don't realize this was just removed from our system in 1965. So the more expensive it gets to create the money, they need to find cheaper money. The cheaper money they use, the less value that money has. Even if they started at face over here like dollars, now you've got 3 cents left out of those dollars. And they've got to go digital because, hey, it costs 9.7 cents to create a $100 bill. That's not enough. So, yeah, I think it's a great strategy. I agree with you 100%. I like my junk silver too. And Lacey Davis, 4770, says, I collected over time 7 grams of gold, sold it, called your team, and bought a pre-33 with that money. That's my strategy. Since I can only buy pieces at a time, I will be buying more with tax money. You just keep accumulating, and you just keep accumulating any way that you can accumulate and create that community around you. That's so important. It's probably my single most important message. And it's kind of interesting because that was always part of the mantra. But I didn't really talk about it that much until I went to Australia. And that's when I realized that that's really the message. It's, the sound money, yes, this is important, but we have to come together in community to take our power back. We have to, absolutely have to do it. So, yeah. And Tim Aiken, 5539, says, what's your opinion of gold stocks? Well, gold stocks are stocks. You don't really own the underlying, and you'll find that they don't really perform in these kinds of circumstances like the physical metal itself. So I would still consider it a risk asset, because like we're seeing in Africa, for example, Nigeria, other places as well, forcing miners to sell part of their their production in the local, devaluing rapidly, hyperinflating away currency is a form of confiscation. Higher royalties are a form of confiscation. So I don't own any stocks. I just want the real stuff that I hold and I own outright. That's not always been true. It will not always be true into the future. But because of where we are in the trend cycle right now, it is 100% true for me. You have to determine what you're comfortable with. So I can't tell you don't do it. You need to do whatever you're comfortable with. Just make sure you're properly diversified. And 121 asks, question, you used to report on the LIBOR SOFR transition. Any new news on that? I think it recently spiked, but has since come down. Seasonal, maybe? Yeah, the LIBOR SOFR transition, I don't really think that we've seen the end of all of this. But they transitioned into the SOFR. The SOFR still doesn't quite meet the LIBOR. They made a whole bunch of fixes to patch it so that it didn't obviously blow up. But I haven't looked at it recently, to be honest with you. But I will. I mean, I see the SOFR, reported daily, and the transition. Yeah. We'll come back to that. And Gascon Hart says, hi, Lynette. I enjoy watching your shows. Thank you very much. Can you travel with gold coins in a bag in a commercial airplane just like that in the European Union? Thanks. Well, frankly, I do. I hold them in my purse. I hold them in my wallet. And I probably shouldn't tell you this. But yeah, I do. Now, I don't have a big pouch that I carry around like that. Other than for my money guns, I put the money guns in there. And I pack those in the suitcase, or they're like, what are those? But I really have not had any problem traveling with gold and silver, and also jewelry, which is another form of gold and silver, isn't it? So yeah, no problem whatsoever. Now, if you're going to China, and actually you brought up the European Union, and I haven't looked at this in a while, but there was a point where you couldn't travel, even though the point of the European Union was to open up the borders and ease those travel restrictions. But I know for a while there, they put in restrictions on being able to move from country to country with gold. Having said that, in my personal travels and even in Europe, nobody even checked or asked. So I'm not sure that that's a thing, but I'm going to double check that because I haven't looked at it in a while, to be honest with you. But I personally have not ever had a problem with it. So we'll come back to that too. And Zachary Haney, 6781. Ms. Zang, if you were a fruit, you'd be a pineapple. Oh, a fine-apple? Thank you. Love the content. I'm a year stacker and have stacked 100 ounces of silver and 1 ounce of gold. Thank you so much. And I love that I would be a fine apple. Because you know that saying, when a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over generations, the truth will seem outrageous and the speaker a raving lunatic. So I kind of consider myself a bit of a lunatic. But I'll take fine apple. Thank you so much. And Soju Woman asks, are you hiring? I want to move out of Massachusetts ASAP. Well, that's not my position. So I really can't answer that, but you can call and ask and see what skills and what you have to offer. I mean, you know, we're always looking to grow our community with people that care and with people that really want to make a positive difference for a lot of people. That is what we are about as a company. That is what we're about. And Aluminum says, is it normal for SLV to be lower than the spot price of silver? Yep, it is normal. And actually, if you go into stockcharts.com, and I've shown you guys this before, and I don't know if we just did one video on it, but if you go into stockcharts.com, can you bring that up and and we can show them how to do this? SLV, you don't own silver. All you own are shares in a trust. And they changed the prospectus back, after 2020 to because they couldn't pull together enough silver for the silver baskets. So they changed the prospectus that all SLV has to do is mimic the manipulated spot market. So can you go up in that top and the stock charts and put in, I don't care, $ silver? Yeah. It's just silver, and then just hit enter, and it should bring up the chart. There it is. Okay. Now, go down to the bottom of the chart and then go all the way to the right. And you see those little gray things that says other at the that one. Click on that one and see where two up it says relative performance chart. Nope, you went too far. That one, yep, click it. Okay, now up at that bar where it says $ silver, no space, put a comma and put SLV. Okay, and then just hit enter. Okay, so you can see one of the spot silver is red and the SLV, the NAV of SLV is blue. And it looks like it does do exactly what it's designed to do, which is just reflect the spot price of silver. But do you see there's some kind of, get rid of that. Thank you. Okay, yep. Drag it all the way across. Okay, now this is where you see the truth, because in the prospectus, they are allowed to sell off on a daily basis parts of their silver holding to pay those ongoing daily fees. So, it's a diminishing asset. You don't own silver. You have no access to it. I don't even know that they truly have enough silver in the baskets to reflect all of the purchases into the ETF. It's really just, it's used to keep you away from the real stuff. And is it normal for SLV to be lower than the spot price of silver? Well, there's probably not enough silver to reflect it. So, no. And ETFs, that's what SLV is. It's an ETF. ETFs can trade below their net asset value, but I couldn't even tell you what the true net asset value is of SLV because they changed the prospectus, and it's only designed to reflect and mimic the manipulated spot price. I don't own any of that garbage, nor would I recommend it. You do what you want, but there you have it. So do we have more questions? Okie dokie. Well, that's it for today then. This has been fun. I have a lot of homework. And I will do it, and I will see you next Tuesday. And until then, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.